There are mornings that pass you by like traffic, ordinary, forgettable. And then there are mornings that split your life in two. This one started like the former. I woke up early to the sound of birds outside our window and the rhythmic hum of the dishwasher downstairs. Lauren had already been up, probably for at least an hour, judging by the clatter of pans I half remember hearing around 6. Our son, Eli, had crawled into our bed sometime during the night, curled up by my side the way 8-year-olds do when they've had a strange dream or just want to feel close to someone. He was still asleep when I slipped out from under the covers. I remember pausing for a second, just looking at him. The messy hair, the little crease between his brows he'd had since he was a baby. He was a good kid, bright, sensitive, the kind of boy who noticed things you didn't even know you were doing. By the time I made it downstairs, Lauren was in the kitchen, already dressed, hair brushed, makeup light but precise. A little too precise for a regular Saturday morning. She was wearing a fitted blue shirt I didn't recognize and had a hint of perfume on, subtle, but not her usual kind. I chalked it up to her needing to feel put together. She'd always been like that. Even on weekends when we had nowhere to be, she took time to look. Intentional. "Morning," I said, stepping into the kitchen. "Hey," she replied without turning. She was stirring something on the stove, scrambled eggs, I think. She moved a little too quickly, like she was trying to stay ahead of her own thoughts. I poured myself some coffee and leaned against the counter, glancing out the kitchen window. It had rained overnight, and everything outside looked fresh, almost too quiet. That's when Eli came padding into the room, still in his dinosaur pajamas, dragging his blanket behind him. "Hey, buddy," I said. "Hi, Dad." He climbed onto one of the bar stools at the island, rubbing his eyes. Lauren smiled at him. "Hungry? I made eggs just the way you like." He nodded absently and looked toward the fridge, then back at me. And that's when it happened. Out of nowhere, so casually it could have passed for a comment about cartoons, he said, "Can I tell Dad who Uncle Jay is? He came to visit you last night." Just like that. My heart didn't immediately drop. Not at first. It was more like I paused, like my brain had to catch up to what I just heard. "Uncle Jay?" I repeated, careful with my tone. Lauren didn't even flinch. I swear, she didn't even blink. She smiled. Not the real one, but the polite one, the one that doesn't touch your eyes, and let out a soft laugh. "Oh, he's just a neighbor," she said. "He stopped by for a few minutes, helped me fix that leaky faucet upstairs." She turned to Eli and added, "You know how you like to pretend people are superheroes or secret agents? Maybe you got a little mixed up." Eli didn't respond. He didn't even look at her. He just looked at me. There was this pause, maybe 5 seconds, maybe 10, where no one moved. I was holding my coffee mid-sip. She was standing by the stove, her back stiff, the spatula clenched in her right hand. Eli was fiddling with the sleeve of his pajama top. I set my mug down slowly. "You never mentioned a neighbor helping you," I said. Lauren shrugged, keeping her voice even. "It was just last night. You were out late and I didn't want to bother you. It wasn't a big deal." Her hands were trembling. That's what caught me. Not her voice. She was too good at staying calm. Not her words. She had an answer ready, like she'd rehearsed it. But the way her hands shook as she scooped the eggs onto the plate, that was real. That was the truth leaking out between the lies. I glanced at Eli again. He wasn't confused. He wasn't being dramatic or playful. His face wasn't mischievous or silly. He just looked puzzled, like something didn't add up, like he had watched something happen and was now trying to understand why no one wanted to talk about it. That's when something shifted in me. I didn't say anything. Not then. What was I supposed to say? That I suddenly didn't believe my wife? That I thought she might be hiding something? Or worse, someone? No. I just sat down next to Eli, gave him a small smile and asked, "What else did you and Uncle Jay do last night?" Lauren spun around. "He was barely here," she cut in, voice just a little sharper now. "Honestly, it wasn't even worth mentioning." Eli looked between us. "He was here for a while," he said carefully. "You told me to go to bed, but I saw the porch light on way later. He parked in the driveway." I thought maybe he was your cousin or something." I looked back at Lauren. She stared at him like she wanted to interrupt again but thought better of it. That silence between us, it felt like a cold wind had swept through the room. Something unspoken stretched tight across the kitchen, like a thread waiting to snap. I noticed then that Lauren hadn't touched her coffee. I noticed that her smile had faded, replaced by something harder to read. I noticed she wasn't looking at me anymore. But I didn't push. Not yet. Maybe because I didn't want to fight in front of our son. Maybe because I didn't want to believe what was starting to form in the back of my mind. Or maybe, if I'm being completely honest, because I wasn't ready to hear whatever she wasn't saying. The rest of breakfast passed in a strange kind of haze. We went through the motions like actors in a play. Eli talked about a drawing he wanted to finish. Lauren reminded him to clean up his room, and I said I'd take him to the park after lunch. All normal, but none of it was. That morning split my life clean in two. Before I knew the truth, and after I started suspecting it. And I played my part just like she did, pretending everything was fine, pretending we were still the same family sitting around the table, eating eggs and sipping coffee like nothing had changed. But something had. And even though I didn't have proof yet, I could feel it in my bones. Jacob, whatever his name really was, had been in my house, in my space, while I was gone. And Lauren, my wife of 10 years, had let it happen. After that breakfast, I told myself it was probably nothing. That Eli had just misheard, or misread the situation. That Lauren wasn't lying, just simplifying things. But the problem with trying to unsee something is that once the crack appears, everything else starts to split along the same line. That day, I took Eli to the park like I said I would. We kicked a soccer ball around, laughed about the squirrels chasing each other, and shared a strawberry smoothie that melted too fast in the sun. I tried to stay present, tried to be the dad I always was. But the entire time, that one sentence repeated itself in my head like a drumbeat. Uncle Jay came to visit Mom last night. I kept hearing it in Eli's voice. Calm, honest, unfiltered. That's the thing about kids. They don't edit their memories. They just say what they saw. That night, when Lauren said she was going to bed early, I said, "I'll be up soon," and stayed on the couch, pretending to scroll through my phone while my mind unraveled 100 moments I hadn't questioned before. There was that one Saturday last month when she said she had a volunteer planning retreat with her coworkers. She was gone from morning until nearly midnight. I'd been proud of her, even encouraged her to stay active with community projects. "You're doing something meaningful," I'd said. She kissed my cheek and told me I was sweet, but she never mentioned who she was with. No pictures, no notes, no stories. Then I remembered the night she said her phone had fallen in the sink. Said she'd dropped it while brushing her teeth. I asked if she wanted to take mine until hers was fixed. She smiled and said, "I'll be fine." It's kind of freeing not being reachable. But the next morning, she had a new phone. Same model, same case, same passcode, which no longer worked for me. A week later, she started sleeping with it under her pillow. I had chalked it up to paranoia on my part. Maybe she just wanted privacy. She'd been talking a lot lately about needing mental space, needing to reclaim some sense of identity outside motherhood and marriage. I respected that. I told her I understood, because I wanted to, but that wasn't all. She stopped laughing at my jokes. At first, I thought maybe they just weren't funny anymore. But then she stopped asking how my day was, too. I'd come home, rambling about work, and she'd nod like she was trying to hit a word count in a text she didn't want to send. One night, I made a dumb pun about a raccoon in the garbage outside. Eli laughed so hard he nearly spit out his cereal. Lauren didn't even look up from her phone. That stung. We used to be silly together. Late-night kitchen dances while doing the dishes. Playing guess the movie quote over wine. Inside jokes scribbled in sticky notes on the bathroom mirror. But those things stopped gradually. Quietly, like someone dimming the lights one notch at a time. New clothes started showing up in the closet. Dresses I didn't recognize. Tops she wouldn't have worn a year ago. Lower cut, more fitted. When I asked if she went shopping, she said, "I just wanted to treat myself." No harm in that. I didn't want to be the guy who made her feel like she needed permission to feel good. But she never asked if I liked them. Never tried them on in front of me. Never wore them around me at all, actually. There was one shirt in particular, dark red, lace trim. I saw it once crumpled in the laundry hamper under a towel. I picked it up, thinking it was new. The tag was missing. It had been worn, and not by me. Then there were the weekend events. She said they were for the nonprofit fundraisers, planning sessions, community outreach. I was proud of her commitment. I'd offer to come along, help out, meet her team. She always said it wasn't really my thing. Just boring logistics, she'd say. I'd feel bad making you sit through it. I believed her, or I convinced myself I did. I remember once she came home late, said the venue had flooded and they had to find a last-minute space across town. She was flustered, but weirdly chipper. She smelled like men's cologne, not mine. When I asked, she said someone had hugged her at the event. One of the dads from the board. Too much aftershave, I guess. I laughed it off. Why did I laugh it off? I didn't want to be the guy checking his wife's location or reading into every calendar entry. But slowly, it was like she had erased the memory of us ever being close. Replaced it with a new version of herself that didn't have space for me anymore. I stopped seeing her. Not physically, she was still there. Still making dinner. Still packing Eli's lunch. Still folding laundry. But she wasn't really there. Not with me. She started listening to new music. Indie stuff I'd never heard before. I asked her once what it was. She said, just something Jay recommended. Jay. There it was again. That name. The one Eli had casually mentioned at breakfast like it was no big deal. But I couldn't remember her ever bringing him up before that. I asked, who's Jay? Oh, he's on the board with me. Works in community outreach. We've only talked a few times. Just emails. Just emails. So why was she listening to music he liked? Why was Eli calling him uncle? I started paying closer attention. Not just to what she did, but to how I reacted. I realized I'd been gaslighting myself. Every time something felt off, I told myself I was being dramatic. That maybe I wasn't doing enough. That maybe if I just helped more around the house, took her on a date night, texted her more often, she'd come back. But she hadn't gone anywhere. She had drifted. Drifted far enough to not even see the shore anymore. And the scary part? I'd let her. I don't know when I started feeling invisible, but by the time I noticed, I already was. A shadow sitting across from her at dinner. A background character in the story she was writing for someone else. Even Eli had started picking up on it. One night before bed, he asked me, why is Mom always tired? I said, she's just been working a lot lately. He frowned. She's not happy, is she? I didn't know what to say. That night, I stared at the ceiling for hours, listening to her soft breathing beside me, wondering if she was dreaming of someone else, wondering if the life we had built, the quiet routines, the shared toothbrush drawer, the silly traditions, had all just become a waiting room for whatever came next. For her, at least. Maybe I'm not the perfect husband. I've forgotten birthdays. I've been lazy. I've zoned out during stories. But I've always been there. Always honest. Always loyal. And now, I couldn't unsee what I had chosen not to see for months. Maybe longer. I knew something was happening. I just didn't know how deep it went. Not yet. But I was about to find out. I don't know what exactly pushed me over the edge. Maybe it was Eli calling him Uncle Jay. Maybe it was the way Lauren's hands shook when she lied. Or how she looked right through me like I wasn't there. Maybe it was everything stacked on top of everything else. The missed birthdays, the changed passwords, the vanishing warmth. But at some point, suspicion stops being a whisper and starts becoming a scream you can't ignore anymore. It was a Wednesday evening when she left for another one of those planning meetings. She was careful. Kissed me goodbye. Reminded me to help Eli with his homework, and left with her phone in her hand, typing something as she walked out the door. She didn't even take her laptop this time, just her purse. That told me everything I needed to know. I waited 20 minutes after she left. Enough time for her to think I wasn't paying attention. Then I went to her side of the closet, behind the rows of clothes she never wore around me anymore. There was a canvas laptop sleeve on the top shelf. One she hadn't used in months. I pulled it down. Inside was her older MacBook. I didn't even know she still had it. It was dusty, not plugged in. But when I opened it, the screen lit up. Not dead, just sleeping. And the password hadn't changed. That's when I felt it. That sick twist in your stomach when your body knows what your mind doesn't want to admit yet. I hesitated, not because I thought I might be wrong, but because I knew I was about to lose the last shred of plausible deniability I'd been clinging to. I was about to know for sure. And once I knew, I couldn't unknow. I clicked open her browser. Tabs from weeks ago. Then months. Then her cloud account still auto-logged in. I clicked on photos. That's when the world cracked open. There were pictures. Dozens. Some of them so casual they almost looked like stock photos. Laughing in the passenger seat of a car. Eating takeout on the floor of a living room I didn't recognize. Him brushing her hair behind her ear like he had every right to. But others were unmistakable. Her and Jacob J. sitting on our couch. The couch I bought when Eli was born. Her legs draped across his lap. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. Her head tilted back in a laugh, her hand on his chest. Their drinks sweating on our coffee table. Inches away from the wedding photo she'd once insisted we frame in would because metal felt too cold. Then the selfies. Her with him cheek to cheek, smiling. In our kitchen. On our porch. One of them in what looked like a hotel mirror. Her in a robe, him shirtless behind her, brushing his teeth like they'd just woken up from the same bed. I felt like the air had been punched out of my chest. I kept scrolling. I don't even know why. Maybe part of me thought I'd find a message, or something to explain it all away. But there was nothing like that. Just more of the same, more moments captured in places I used to think were sacred. And then I found the video. It was dated from 2 months ago. The week I'd been sent out of state for work. I remembered that trip. I had sent Lauren a picture of the hotel gym. Joked that I was becoming one of those weird guys who pack sneakers for conferences. She didn't respond that night. Just a haha, you're cute, the next morning. The video started with static, then our backyard. Our backyard. She was filming from the patio. You could see the hammock. The flower pots Eli had painted. The stupid plastic flamingo she'd insisted on buying because she thought it was ironically tacky. She was filming herself and Jacob. They were laughing. She panned the camera from her face to his, then back to the dog, our dog curled up by his feet. Like this was all normal. Like they belonged there. Then Jacob leaned in and kissed her. Not fast. Not nervous. Not secretive. Like he'd done it 100 times. Like he had every right. I slammed the laptop shut so hard it made the table shake. My hands were numb. My mouth tasted like metal. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even swear. I just sat there, staring at nothing. The kind of blank stare you only get when something inside you breaks and you're not sure what's left. That's when I realized this wasn't just an affair. This was a second life. A parallel version of reality built right on top of mine. She hadn't just made a mistake. She'd made plans. She'd taken steps. She'd opened the door, invited him in, and given him everything I thought was ours. The worst part wasn't the int asterisk Macy. It wasn't even the secrecy. It was the ease, the comfort, the way they moved around my house like I'd already been replaced. Like I didn't exist. I sat in the kitchen for hours. Lights off. Just the hum of the fridge and the distant sound of Eli's cartoons upstairs. I didn't move. I just let it wash over me. The betrayal, the embarrassment, the slow realization that I had been lied to not just by my wife, but by my own trust. I had handed her every part of me without reservation, and she had used that to make me blind. I thought about confronting her right away, calling her, sending the pictures, driving to wherever she was and standing in front of her with the laptop open, saying, "Explain this." But I didn't. Not because I was afraid of the fight, but because I knew there was no fight to be had. The moment Eli said that name, the war was already over. I'd just been the last one to notice. I stood up and walked to the sink, ran cold water over my wrists, took deep breaths. Then I went upstairs, tucked Eli in, kissed his forehead, and whispered that I loved him. I watched him sleep for a long time. He looked peaceful, unaware, safe. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to give her the chance to twist this into some narrative where she was confused or lonely, or where I hadn't been emotionally available. No, she made a choice. And now so would I. But first I needed to gather everything. The files. The photos. I backed them up twice. One on a flash drive. One on the cloud under a new email account. I didn't know what I'd need yet, but I wanted to be ready. Then I cleaned up, closed the laptop, put everything back exactly where I found it. No fingerprints, no mess, no evidence I had seen anything. When Lauren came home that night, close to midnight, I was already in bed, lights off, pretending to sleep. She smelled like perfume and wind. Her steps were light. No guilt, no panic. She slid into bed next to me without a word. And I lay there, perfectly still, staring at the ceiling, while the person I thought I knew better than anyone in the world slept beside me like a stranger. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. Lauren lay beside me, her breathing soft and even, like she hadn't just burned our life down and left the ashes in the cloud for me to discover. I listened to the rhythm of it, counted the seconds between each breath, stared at the ceiling until my eyes ached. It wasn't rage that kept me awake. It wasn't heartbreak, either. That had already happened in the kitchen. When I saw the video of them laughing in our backyard, my dog curled up at Jacob's feet like it was just another day. That's when everything broke. What came after was something colder, clearer. I was done. And I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a fight. No yelling. No slamming doors. No dramatic confrontation where she could twist the story into one where I was the unstable one, or the overreacting husband, or the guy who never tried to understand her. I wasn't giving her an audience. I was giving her silence. I waited until morning. Lauren's alarm went off just after 6. She silenced it, mumbled something about being tired, and rolled out of bed. I kept my eyes closed. I heard the shower run. The sound of her moving through the room, slipping on clothes, spraying perfume. I could tell she thought I was asleep. Good. When she left for work, or wherever she was actually going, I got up. The house was quiet. Early sunlight crept through the blinds. It was the kind of peaceful morning that used to mean something. Now it just felt hollow, like I was walking through a version of my life that had already ended and no one had told me yet. I went into the office and opened the closet. Inside was an old beach bag. Navy blue canvas, faded at the corners. We used to take it to the shore when Eli was little. It still had sand in the bottom. I dumped it out. Then I packed. Not everything, just what mattered. Birth certificate, social security card, cash I'd stashed in the safe for emergencies, flash drive with the photos and video, a change of clothes, phone charger, toothbrush, passport, my grandfather's watch. I left my wedding ring on the nightstand. Eli was at school. Lauren wouldn't be home until late, probably not until after dinner. That gave me a window. Not to disappear entirely, I wasn't going off-grid, but to leave cleanly, quietly, with no breadcrumbs to follow. I powered off my phone and left it on the kitchen counter. Then I grabbed the car keys and walked out the door. There was no pause, no last look over my shoulder. I didn't stand in the driveway thinking about what I was leaving behind, because the truth was, I'd already been left. I just hadn't left back yet. I drove for 6 hours. No destination. Just followed the open road, played music I hadn't listened to in years, watched as the town I'd built my life in shrank behind me. Eventually, I crossed into another state. Small town, forgettable highway exit, faded gas station sign, and a cheap motel tucked behind a diner. It looked like it hadn't been renovated since the early 2000s. Perfect. I paid in cash. No ID. Gave a name that wasn't mine. The clerk didn't care. He handed me the key like I was just another ghost passing through. The room was small, 2 beds, scratchy sheets, buzzing mini-fridge. I locked the door behind me, dropped my bag on the chair, and sat down on the edge of the bed. Then I exhaled. It wasn't peace. Not yet. But it was quiet. I took the flash drive out and looked at it for a while. Just stared at it sitting in my hand like it was radioactive. It held the evidence. The whole story. My exit wound, digitized and compressed into folders and timestamps. And the thing was, I didn't even want to open it again. I didn't need to, because now I knew. And knowing was enough. I turned on the tiny motel TV and muted it. Let it play static light sitcoms in the background while I sat there, just being still for the first time in weeks. Months, maybe. When night fell, I cracked the window and listened to the hum of distant traffic. The smell of grease from the diner next door drifted in. It was a nothing smell, a nowhere place. But I liked that. I didn't cry. I thought I might. I thought the silence would break me, but it didn't. What surprised me most was the calm, the absence of noise. No more wondering where she was. No more trying to guess the truth. No more pretending that if I just held on tighter, we'd be okay. We weren't okay. We hadn't been for a long time. And in that tiny motel room, under dim lights and the faint rattle of the air conditioner, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Stillness. Not joy, not relief, but stillness. And I realized, for the first time in a long, long while, I wasn't waiting anymore. I expected her to call. That first day, I left my phone behind, but I knew she'd try. I assumed by the time Eli got home and found I wasn't there, she'd panic. Thought maybe she'd start calling friends, maybe even the police. I imagined her voice cracking on a voicemail. Hey, where are you? Please call me. But that call never came. Not on the first day. Not the second. By day 3, I gave in and bought a cheap burner phone from a gas station outside town. New number, unlisted. I turned it on and waited. Still nothing. All I got was one message. From her old number. Where are you? That was it. Not, are you okay? Not, please come home. Not, I'm sorry. Just that. A simple, sterile sentence that could have come from anyone asking about a missing package. That was when it hit me harder than the photos, harder than the video. She wasn't surprised. Not even shaken. Just mildly inconvenienced. Like I'd gone off script too soon and left her fumbling to cover the lie. She didn't even ask why. Because she already knew. There was no frantic explanation. No denial, no gaslighting attempt to flip this on me. Her silence was clean, polished. A silence that came from someone who had already said goodbye to me in her mind a long time ago. I sat on the edge of the motel bed that night, phone in one hand, heart in the other, trying to figure out what kind of person reacts like that. You think, when betrayal is exposed, there's going to be chaos. Pleading. A last-ditch confession. But when there's nothing left, even the truth feels irrelevant. I didn't reply. What was there to say? The next day I got a letter. Not from her. From Jacob's wife. Her name was Anna. I'd heard it once, in passing, maybe during one of those bored dinner stories Lauren used to tell. It came in a plain white envelope. No return address. Just my name written in careful, slanted cursive. Inside was a 2-page note. Handwritten. Not angry. Not accusatory. Just human. She started by saying she didn't know me, but she was sorry I had to find out this way. She wrote that she'd suspected something was wrong for a while, but didn't have proof until recently, until she found a second phone Jacob had kept hidden in his desk drawer. She had found pictures. Not just of them together, but of them in our house. In her backyard. She told me she debated for days whether to reach out. But she finally decided that if she were in my position, she'd want to know the truth from someone who wasn't trying to twist it. Then she wrote one line that stuck with me more than anything else. Did you know this has been going on for over a year? Over a year. That detail shouldn't have broken me. I already knew too much. But somehow, it felt like I was learning about the death of someone who'd already died. Just another detail to carve on the headstone of what we used to be. A year. That meant she lied through holidays, through birthdays, through Eli's school projects, family movie nights, slow dances in the kitchen when she pretended to be tired but still swayed to the music. It meant she smiled at me with another man's hands still fresh on her skin. It meant I slept next to her while she dreamed of someone else, and she did it for months before I even noticed the cracks. The betrayal wasn't a moment. It was a timeline, and I had lived in it like a fool. I wrote Anna back. not out of obligation, but because I needed to say thank you. I told her she didn't owe me anything, but I appreciated her honesty. I said I was sorry she was hurting too, that I hoped, in some twisted way, knowing the truth gave her clarity like it did for me. I ended the letter with, "We didn't ask for this, but now we get to choose how we leave it behind." I dropped it in a mailbox that night, and then I stared at Lauren's message again, still sitting there, unread, like it was waiting for a version of me that still cared what she had to say. "Where are you?" She didn't know where I was, but I did. I was somewhere she couldn't follow, not physically, but emotionally. I was out of the story now, a closed chapter, the background noise in a life she was rewriting with someone else. She had always been clever, careful. She must have known I'd find out eventually. And maybe that's why her message was so simple. Maybe she thought it'd be easier to pivot if she didn't look too guilty. But she miscalculated something. She thought I'd fight. She thought I'd come back to argue, to beg, to demand a reason. But I didn't need reasons anymore. I needed peace. And silence, the very silence she gave me, was how I knew I was finally getting close. When she realized I wasn't coming back, she shifted fast. Friends started reaching out. "She's saying you had a breakdown. She says you abandoned her and Eli." I didn't argue. I just called a lawyer. Returned home quietly, met with him and filed for divorce. Cited infidelity. Provided proof. The look on her face when she got served? Shock. Like I was the one who betrayed her. She showed up at my mom's house crying. My mother, God bless her, didn't flinch. "You chose another man," she told Lauren. "Now you're talking to his ex-wife." That's when I knew. I wasn't crazy. I was just finally done. A few months later, I heard Jacob left her. Just walked out. No goodbye. No explanation. She lost the house, the job, even some friends. Meanwhile, I got hired to restore homes, honest work. Quiet peace. One afternoon in a bookstore, I met Emma. Warm laugh, sharp wit. She didn't ask me to be perfect. Just real. With her, I didn't flinch. Didn't doubt. Lauren became a memory I stopped revisiting. I didn't need closure. I had freedom. I had a future. And finally, I had me.